We're leaving Australia and heading all the way over to Europe for a springtime visit to France. Although this was a family holiday for 2 weeks, we did spend a few days visiting different birding hotspots to see what cool European birds we could find. Our first stop, Paris. Now, my pronunciation of anything French is absolutely terrible, so I'm going to put all the names of the places up on the screen. Our first stop was a beautiful park right next to the Louvre. Very popular with people, but also there's some cool birds to be found here. Despite their name, the grey wagtail has a bright yellow belly and vent. It's especially bright in breeding season. An interesting fact is they have the longest tail of all the wagtails. They are constantly in motion, wagging their tails up and down repeatedly, a behaviour that might serve as a visual signal or help flush out prey. There are a number of large ponds in the park. I came to visit them just before the park closed, so the crowds were starting to thin out. A good time to view some water birds. one lunch, we grabbed a couple of baguettes, some sweet pastries, and headed to a park opposite the Notre Dame, where there were a couple of birds watching us. And while here, we visited Notre Dame to see their newly completed interior. Some of the favourite foods we had here was having some delicious breakfast at Eggs & Co, going to one of the oldest chocolate shops in France, having some delicious beef bourguignon, and going to a highly rated kebab shop and then eating our kebabs with a view. Unlike Australia, early mornings in Paris there's not much open and there's not many people around. So it's a perfect opportunity to catch a train to the south of Paris and visit one of the parks there. This park had a good mix of native European species and introduced birds. Canada geese were introduced to France in 1611, when King Louis XIII received several pairs of geese as a gift. By the 18th century, they'd established populations in France, as well as other parts of Europe like Great Britain and Ireland. The bar-headed goose was originally introduced to Sweden in the 1930s, and in the 1950s they nested in Norway. There are now a few breeding individuals found in France and the UK. They were originally from Central Asia, mainly China and Mongolia. Our beautiful Australian black swans were introduced to France in 1804, at the request of Empress Josephine Bonaparte, who had a fascination with Australian flora and fauna. One bird I was keen to photograph was the Eurasian magpie. They were not very cooperative, quite often just hiding in the long grass. The birds I did have a lot of luck here with, though, were the European tits. First, the long-tailed tit, one of Europe's smallest and cutest birds. Next was the great tit, with its black head and white cheeks. And the third one we saw was a spectacular Eurasian blue tit. And it was great to get our first look at a European robin. Not at all related to Australian robins. European robins are part of the Old World flycatcher family, while Australian robins are part of the Australasian robin family. We only spotted a couple of birds in these beautiful gardens. And once again, a non-cooperative Eurasian magpie. We did have a lot of fun walking around the streets of Paris, spotting these cool mosaics. Being animal lovers, by far our favourite piece of the museum was Francois Ponpon's polar bear. And we since learned there was another version of this polar bear at the Natural History Museum, so of course we had to go there. One of the highlights of the museum was the gallery that housed either endangered or extinct animals. It's cool to see some mock-up dodos, as well as this beautiful harpy eagle. We're now leaving Paris and heading south to the beautiful city of Lyon. markets in France was one of the highlights. It was peak season for strawberries, and they were by far the most delicious strawberries we've ever eaten. We're also big fans of Brett's chips. You can get 3 or 4 flavours in Australia, but here you can get all the flavours. They also had a really cool movie museum here, with some costumes and props from some of my favourite movie franchises. Enough of the tourist activities. Let's go north of Lyon and visit a park to see what birds we can find. I recommend a long lens, a scope or binoculars. The lake is quite large in this park and some of the birds can be quite a distance away. I have seen grey-lag geese before in Centennial Park in Sydney, but they're an introduced species, so it was cool to see them in their native habitat. As a bonus, we got to see Mum and its goslings. It's definitely springtime. Along with the grey-lag geese goslings, we got to see a couple of mute swans and their cygnets. Opened in 1857, this is the largest park in Lyon, at 117 hectares. As well as plenty of birds and flowers, there's a free zoo, there's a velodrome, there's mini golf, an equestrian facility, and a mini train. The Eurasian jay was one of the birds I was keen to see and photograph. They are typically quite shy, so I wasn't expecting to get good views, but we did have one bird present to us really well. These birds can be found across northern Asia and most of Europe. Finally did get to see a cooperative Eurasian magpie. I only spotted one single woodpecker on this entire trip, this great spotted woodpecker, which was right next to the zoo. And we got another really good look at a European robin, just before a massive hailstorm came through. The hail didn't seem to bother the robin, which stayed with us and allowed me to get some great photos of it. For the last part of our journey, we picked up a car and headed south. On the way to the coast, we saw a couple of impressive Roman monuments. Our ultimate destination was the Carmague wetlands. Designated a wetland of international importance, over 400 species of bird can be found here. We spent 2 nights here in a gypsy caravan. Before we go look at the birds, let's have a quick look at the iconic Carmague white horse. Let's have a quick look at the inside of our cool little gypsy wagon. Not too bad, a little sitting area here. There's a bed, got a tiny kitchen, double bed, reasonably comfortable. And back here, there's a cute little bathroom with a full-size shower. Yeah, a bit of fun for a couple of nights. One reason for picking the gypsy wagon is it was right next to the ornithological park, where we would spend the whole of the next day looking at birds. The cattle egrets around the world were once considered a single species, but have been split into 2. The eastern cattle egrets are found in Asia, Africa and Australia, and these, the western cattle egrets, are found in the Americas, Europe, the Middle East and Africa. I only got to see a couple of these yellow-legged gulls. You can't really tell from the video, but they are quite large, with large males weighing up to 1.5 kilograms. We did see quite a few of these large koipu swimming around the waterways. These are semi-aquatic rodents that are native to South America. They were introduced to the Northern Hemisphere as part of the fur trade. Quite similar looking to Australia's pied stilts, the black-winged stilts can be found in Europe and Northern Asia during the breeding season, while they fly down to India and southern Africa during the non-breeding season. The only spoonbill to be found in these parts is the Eurasian spoonbill, which can be found in Asia, Africa and Europe. Their feeding technique is the same as the spoonbills back home. This individual is showing us its unique head swinging technique, where it uses its flat, wide bill to sweep through shallow water and catch prey. Their preferred food includes insects, crustaceans and tiny fish. The next three birds were quite a distance out in the middle of the lagoon, so it's well worth bringing your binoculars, a scope or a long lens with you again. There was a very large colony of breeding grey herons at the wetlands. They are known to nest in large colonies, known as heronries, with the largest recorded heronry known to have over 400 nests. These birds are quite common and can be found in Africa, Asia and Europe. Our final bird is the number one reason birdwatchers come to the Carmague, to come and see the Greater Flamingo. The Carmague is one of the few places in the world where these birds nest and have done so consistently since 1969. It is a significant breeding site for the Greater Flamingo, with thousands of birds gathering here each year. Being able to get so close to these birds, we get a really good look at their feeding technique. Greater flamingos are filter feeders, using their unique bill structure to extract food from water and mud. They hold their bill upside down in shallow water, and then sweep it side to side, using their tongue to pump water in and out. Comb-like plates along the edge of the bill filter out the water, while trapping food and particles like algae and small crustaceans. They're also not afraid of putting their head deep into the mud to find the good stuff, making for a very comical look when they come up for air. I hope you've enjoyed a look at just some of the birds that can be found around Paris, Lyon and the Carmague. This was a family holiday, so we didn't do too much birding. But along the way, I added 35 species to my life list to take my worldwide total to 721 birds. Thanks, and see you next time.